Hi, I'm Rob Boyd, an English photographer from the UK. I decided to create this podcast series talking to international photographers whose work I truly love. I realised I knew nothing about these amazing people apart from their names and their stunning work. So I created a set of hopefully entertaining questions that finds out who they are and what they love. Hi Dave, thanks for joining me. It's nice to see you, finally, after all these years. Thank you. Can you tell me your Instagram name?
InstaDaveW. A lot of people say InstaDrew because they're maybe not looking too carefully. So my name's not Drew, it's Dave. And my daughter actually chose that name for me years ago when I knew nothing about phones or Instagramming or anything like that. And she's like, and I like taking pictures, right? So I was taking more landscape stuff at that point. But she's like, you should start an Instagram so people can see your stuff. I'm like, I don't even like Facebook or this Instagram thing, whatever. She's like, here, I'll make the account for you. So she got on my phone and she, what do you want your name to be? I said, I don't know, just Dave Warden. She's like, that's taken. Like, Insta Dave, that's taken too. So just put my last initial in then, Insta Dave W, then that worked. So I've kind of regretted it because it's kind of a dumb name, but whatever. I don't want to change it now.
No. You've been doing it for donkey's years, so you're doing all right. And where do you live, Dave?
In Langley, British Columbia, which is a suburb of Vancouver.
Excellent. Good stuff. And where are you from?
Born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So it's kind of the middle of the prairies, right in the middle of Canada. Very cold winters and hot summers full of mosquitoes is what I remember mostly. But sorry to the people in Winnipeg. It's a great place, great people there, of course. But yeah, it's a kind of cold place in the winter for sure. And then I lived in Whitehorse too, Whitehorse, Yukon, which is another very cold place too, but lovely place in the summer. Like to there. You can probably tell I'm not really a winter person, even though I live in Canada.
No, I can't say I blame you. I don't do the cold. So if I came and visited, where would you take me to shoot?
Well, you like city shooting, I know, so definitely would go downtown, and there's some interesting places down there. So downtown would be probably the first choice, and then New Westminster, a good place for some city photography, I think, too, and stuff. So those two places for city stuff. If you wanted more landscape stuff, of course, there's lots of. I'd recommend going to the Rockies would be great, but that's, if you're going to come out here, I definitely want to go to, Banff and stuff like that. But that's a bit of a drive from here, or 10-hour drive kind of thing. So
excellent stuff. And you probably almost answered my question, but is there anything there for tourists where you live?
But as far as other touristy spots, I mean, you'd have to, when you're here, go to probably Whistler, check that out. It's a beautiful little town in the mountains. The Sea to Sky Highway, when you're driving there, is super beautiful too. Like you're driving along the highway and you got the ocean on one side, the mountains and everything. So that's definitely something I would recommend doing. And then, like we were just talking about the Rockies, got to go there if you're going to do some touristy stuff. Capilano Suspension Bridge in Vancouver here is nice. So
amazing. Yeah, amazing. Absolutely great. And the other end of the scale, what's your favorite destination?
Well, I'd say for sure right now it would be Ireland because my daughter lives there, right? So, but it's actually, I was blown away by the beauty of Ireland when I went there. Just, but the history there, but I didn't realize they had such amazing beaches and stuff. And, we went to some beaches that if it wasn't for the cold water, you would think you were in, the tropics or something, right? And just with gigantic, epic cliffs and, it's just crazy, amazing landscapes there. So it's just, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, amazing. And where would you like to visit most in the world?
I've always wanted to see more of Europe for sure. So that's definitely something in the plans, to see more of Europe. Just the history again. Like I love, like here in Canada, you know, the oldest structures you might see, especially out west where we are. It's there's nothing you're going to see that's older than, 100, 150 years old kind of thing. And there, it's like you see stuff like that is nothing, right? You know, in Europe, there's like just thousands of years of history, and I just find that fascinating. Like if you're standing in, an old church or an old ruins, and you think of the, you know, over the hundreds and thousands of years of what must have happened in that same spot you're standing in and stuff is pretty cool. So yeah, I want to see more of Europe. My wife's always wanted to go to Greece, so it's another thing that we want to do is go to Greece.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely perfect. And a bit of a random question, I warn you. If you could time travel, where and when would you visit?
Oh, goodness, you go into the future to where you can time travel, and then you can do it all the time. Napoleon or something. Catherine the Great. We'll do fire pictures with Lady Godiva. How about that?
All right, another weird question. Okay, another one coming. Tell me a fun fact about yourself.
To get into that, I guess it's suit and tie guy is my brother-in-law is, we call him suit and tie guy, and that came about because I just had this idea for a photo series involving a guy in a suit who is tired of the whole freaking work thing. You know what I mean? Like the whole idea that you have to get up every morning, go to work for the man, and come home and then go back the next day, work for the man. And just, I was just, I don't know, stressed out at work maybe or something when I came up with the idea. But I had this idea of a guy like just laying in the middle of the road, like he's got run over, his briefcase and papers are scattered about and stuff. Or another idea was kind of he's walking down the road and papers are spilling out of his briefcase as he's walking, and he's leaving it all. He's walking down this long road saying, fuck it, kind of thing, right? So that was the idea. So I went out and got my brother to put on his suit, and we went out on this lonely road and took these pictures. And I called it Suit and Tie Guy because of this song by this heavy metal band years ago called Suit and Tie Guy. And it's kind of about the same thing. This guy who's in this suit and tie, and he's, you know, anyway. So that was the inspiration for it all. But so then we got into the next photo shoot after the road one. I was trying to think, what else could we have him do? Like, how about he's on a bridge, like just looking like he might jump or something, right? Which is kind of morbid, and I don't know. But anyways, got out there like 4:35 in the morning or something on a Sunday, still dark. And so we wanted a time where there wasn't much traffic or anything. And then I had him like basically standing on these giant cables where, holding onto it with his briefcase in one hand, looking like he's getting ready to leap over the edge of the bridge. And a car drives by. Okay. And so the car slowed down as it was going by, and then it kept going, right? And didn't really take much notice at that time. But then about 10 minutes later, my brother-in-law looks over the edge of the bridge. He's like, was that a police boat? And there's this boat with the siren, like, or with the lights on underneath the bridge, right? And like, yeah, it is. And then I turned and I look, and there's police cars coming from both ways down the bridge. And they stopped any traffic from coming. And I'm like, fuck. We're in trouble, Dave. So we're just standing there, like, you know how you stand there when you didn't, like, it wasn't us or whatever. We're just standing there, like, oh, what's going on? We didn't do anything. So, anyways, the lady cop comes out and she's like, stop, don't move, guys, don't move. And like, oh, we're just taking pictures. Like, nobody was like standing on the railing or anything, were they? Like, no, we wouldn't do that. So she gets on the radio. She's like, can you check the camera around the blah, blah, blah? And like, well, we might have been pretending a little bit to stand on the thing. So anyways, after she's finished, telling us, we shouldn't be doing this, whatever. I said, do you mind if I take a few pictures of this? I'm on Instagram. And she's like, oh no. At first she goes, why are you guys doing this? I'm like, just for Instagram. She's like, really? Like, yeah, just, I have this series where I take pictures of my brother-in-law. And she's like, okay. And I showed her some pictures of Instagram and stuff. And then I said, you mind if I take some pictures of you? And it's like, okay. And so I stood back to take the pictures, and she literally got out her notebook and started pretending to write notes as I'm talking, or as she, pretending to talk to my brother-in-law. She wasn't even talking. She's just like this for the pictures. It was so funny. And in the picture, you see her supervisor in the background, and he's standing there, I guess. He's just like got this walrus mustache. Just looks like the total sergeant or whatever. And he's standing in the background, like he's just not impressed at all, right? He's just,
Only in Canada. You get that in New York or somewhere. That's it. You'd be straight in a slammer.
yeah, they were very understanding about it all, especially since we had stopped traffic on the bridge and everything. And so basically after that, they just said, okay, carry on, don't stand on the railing anymore or anything. But they didn't make us leave. It was just like, okay, see you guys, and then everybody drove off, and it was all fine. It was, the resources that came out there for that, all that and stuff. I just can't even believe it. It's kind of embarrassing, but
And I love that story of the way you put Dave on a toilet as well in the middle of downtown.
that was another one where that was the end of the COVID year, or the first year of COVID, right? So it was kind of like we were flushing 2020 down the drain. It's like 2020 is a write-off. Let's just flush this year down the drain, right? So got a toilet, and in fact, it's not a used toilet. It was a brand new toilet, but it's from my work. I do plumbing and heating in real life, right? So got this toilet and brought it down and sat it in the middle of the road, and had one guy with a vis vest on, so that anytime you wear a vis vest, people think it's all, above board. It must be some workers here, everything's legit. So no, we didn't get one honk or anything. We put the toilet in the middle of the road, and cars are driving past us, and everybody just thought it was, you know, all good, I guess. I was so surprised. I thought we'd get yelled at and honked and everything. And I'm constantly surprised in Vancouver, actually, how laid back people are. Like, you'll do a smoke bomb in the middle of the street, and people just don't even barely look. Like, they'll just look over and then keep on going as if it's nothing. And so constantly surprised by that, actually, of how laid back it is here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing. Now, another really weird question, because I'm full of weird questions. What's your favorite word?
Favorite word. I don't know if it's a favorite word, but it's a fun word to say. Would be moist.
Yeah, everyone's got a word that they love just the sound of, or whatever, that's the thing. And because this is international, obviously I'm asking people of all different languages and countries and everything else. Teach me a new word or a saying that I might not know.
It's probably a very old saying, but you ever heard of a hoser? How's it going, eh? Hoser? That's so old, though. It's a 30-year-old saying. So I don't know.
And what's the translation to hoser?
You're a goofball or something, I guess.
Excellent. So when did photography click for you? Excuse the pun, but what moment did you realize you could take a good photo?
It's like, I've always loved taking pictures. I've never thought of myself as an actual photographer till a few years ago, I guess. But all my life, like when I was a little kid, I had a little camera, a film camera, and I would, once in a while, maybe it was once a year or something, I'd get a roll of film and go take some pictures with it and stuff, right? So, and then, when phones came along, I was always the documenter, right? Like, we'd go on vacations. I'd bring it before phones even. I'd bring the little Canon point and shoot, or whatever they call it. And, but where I first saw, like, my sister actually bought a Canon entry level. I can't remember what it was called now. It was an entry level DSLR camera, right? And when she took, like, she showed me a picture she was taking with her. I'm like, you got the blurry background and everything. And I was just like, oh, that's so nice. Like, this is when digital DSLRs were first kind of coming out and stuff. And I thought, yeah, I just really like that. I want to get something I can take better pictures with, right? So I bought a Nikon, but the entry level Nikon again, the D31 or something. I'm so bad with names of things. But anyways, their entry level camera, right? So bought that, and it had the kit lens that came with it, and I'm shooting in full automatic. I didn't even know what any of those things meant, right? The thing on the top, what's M and what's A, and what was this all? Just automatic, man. And I thought I was the best photographer ever. I'm just going out and taking all these pictures in automatic, and then I don't need with all this other numbers and stuff. But then I started like realizing what all the other things could do, right? And started learning, and I was like, wow, like there's like so many possibilities, especially with the long exposure stuff and everything. Um, so I guess when I first realized I could take a good photo is when I first got into long exposure stuff, maybe, and realized that you could, open that shutter and capture something that the naked eye can't see. You know what I mean? Like it's another world kind of thing, right? And just that's what really got me fascinated more with photography. And now my first long exposure stuff wasn't actually with light; it was with like smoothing out the water. Let's say, so I would put my camera on a tripod and I'd take a long exposure picture, and then the ocean would go smooth and the clouds would look like they had this movement. And I just thought it looked so surreal and everything. So that's what got me into long exposures, more of that. And then when we started going, to get into it more, I started taking pictures downtown at night and getting the traffic moving and everything. And all that kind of led into eventually to the fire and stuff. But yeah, that's where it started, was long exposures with the landscapes.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. That's amazing. So, I know it's difficult, but what's your favorite 3 photos and why do you like them?
There's a steel wool one that I did with Suit and Tie Guy, where I attached, so I had my steel wool, of course, on the string, right? But I also attached, well, actually, on the string itself I had Christmas lights, and then I had a or not a sparkler, a Roman candle attached to it, and had the steel wool, of course. And then what else was in it? It was just a gong show of things.
Yeah, I remember the long angles. Yeah, he was in the snow, and yeah, and the angle's amazing.
But I was spinning around my head too. It was just like, I can't even believe the photo worked. Even like, it was just, there was so much stuff going on. But that definitely, just because of the difficulty of it and everything too, and we had to drive all the way up the mountain and go in the snow, and a lot of effort went into that shot. And but it just nice when it works out, especially when you only have one shot. I only have one chance, right? I got one Roman candle. I've got like, you don't have a lot of chances to make it work, right? So I love that. About light painting, that's my favorite thing, is you don't know what it's going to look like till you do it, and then then you're like, so that's fun.
Brilliant stuff. What advice would you give to a new photographer? So if somebody starting out came to you and said, what advice can you give me?
Same old advice everybody gives, but just go out and shoot a lot. Like, you're not going to take pictures once a month, and then think you're going to be a photographer, right? You got to be out there. When I was learning, anyway, I'm not out as much anymore, I guess. But when I was learning, I would be shooting, 3 times a week or whatever. Just, you got to get out there and be working the settings and learning if you're going to get better. There's so much to learn with photography. It's a steep learning curve, right? So you really got to get out there and shoot.
And practice. Absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, practice, for sure.
So the final question. So what's next? What are your photography goals coming forward?
I know I'm going to be more selective with my shoots, and then I want to get back into landscape photography again a bit more, though, because I just find that's like like the type of shooting I'm doing now it's not relaxing. It's kind of nuts. Half the time I'm heading to some photo shoot, I don't even know what people are quite what they're wearing or how I'm going to make something happen. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of kind of stress, I guess, in that way. But landscape photography is totally different. You just head out there, you go on a nice walk somewhere in the beautiful nature, and usually you're out there when not many people are out there too. Like, it's first thing in the morning and stuff. So it's like a nice relaxing vibe going on there, right? So I would get into that a bit more for sure.
Stuff. Well, thank you so much after all these years, finally talking to you, and thanks for agreeing to do this. And I love your work. Yeah, and also I want to thank you as well because when I was learning fire or long exposure or whatever, you never had a problem giving me information, and you're always so kind. So I just want to personally thank you for that.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm all about that. Like, I know some people like hide the information or they don't want to share it and stuff. And I've always been about like sharing, sharing knowledge and stuff. Like, I don't see any point in, if somebody's asking a question and you're like, oh, no, I'm not going to tell you or whatever, they'll get it eventually. Why not just, be a nice person and, share some knowledge.
Yeah, pay it forward, definitely. That's the only way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was taught lots of things too by people, right? So now I kind of feel like, I've people pass me along knowledge. I'm not going to hoard it, I guess, right? So,
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking your time. I really appreciate it.
no problem, man. Well, thanks for having me, and I look forward to hearing how you put it all together.